had a little bit of a skip in our intro there for me. Hi, everybody. I was excited because I thought, well, maybe I'm going to get to see Heather's face and her pretty picture twice. But then we jumped right to this. How are you, Heather?
I'm doing well. Surprise!
Here she is. We don't need the picture because here she is. Everybody, I'm Jen, fellow Brain Balance mom and huge Heather Wells fan of The Hidden Churn. Each week we come here together to just kind of talk through different scenarios of what we might all be going through as parents. And actually, before we came on here, Heather, our producer Beth said, Jen, how are you today? And I said, I'm hanging on by a thread. So I feel like we come here and we solve the world's problems together, and it's just a great little session. So I just want to let everybody know Heather is here to help with tips. Today, what are we going to be talking about to everybody?
We are going to talk about the second semester reset. Regardless of how the first semester went, how to make sure the second semester is even better. And a lot of these things we're talking about aren't just about school. It has to do with social, emotional health, and just really a way of life and a way of communicating with kids.
Yes, because it's all one life, right? We have to put all these pieces together for one life. If you've noticed, Heather's background is different today. Heather is coming to us from the new Brain Balance location at the Woodlands. Is that right?
That is right. Yes, we start seeing people here this week. I'm so excited.
That is awesome news. So we're going to make sure that we put up the information for that and all of the other centers at the end of the show. But for now, as we start to get into our topic today, just know that you can comment. Hello, Michelle. As you can see,
Michelle. I miss you too.
Commented. Yes, you can write your comments here. Heather will try to respond to questions, even if you're seeing this on the replay. Sometimes it gives us an idea of what to talk about next time, even if it's not something we can get to today. So make sure that you drop those comments in. And yes, those comments and shout outs of love are always appreciated too. So thank you, Michelle.
She's amazing. I love her.
And just to let everybody know, Heather is a board certified cognitive specialist. She's a therapist, and she's also a National Autism Summit speaker. So this all comes from a well-rounded place of knowledge and education from Heather. So get out your pens and pencils is what I'm saying, because I always want to sit there and just copy all the notes down. Without further ado, let's get into what we're going to do to set ourselves up for success for that second semester. Heather, how are we going to start this out?
We're going to start this out. We've talked about how to communicate with kids on various shows. So taking those principles and do a debriefing, kind of like you might on a project at work. You know, you evaluate afterwards what went well, what didn't go so well, and how can we improve it next time. We want to do that with kids, and this is a collaborative process to the extent possible, and we don't want to shortchange what they are capable of. Make them a part of this process. And so, I talk a lot about we want to talk with our kids, not at our kids. And that means a lot of listening and a lot of asking questions. And in general, we want to ask open-ended questions. Tell me more. How did this happen? Why? Not yes, no questions. If they have language delays or certain intellectual disabilities, of course, this is all going to be adjusted for your child's needs. But do a debriefing and sit down, and hopefully it's a routine part of your days. And if not, what a great time to start. Have family meetings, have one-on-one time with your kids. But how did last semester go? And we are not just talking about grades. I mean, that is such a concrete way that schools measure progress, and it is one indicator, but grades aren't everything. Just ask that open-ended question. How did your first semester go? Because they might say things that you don't even know to be asking about. And then if they do need some prodding, what went well and what didn't go so well? And you can even give examples, but we only want to prompt on the level necessary to get them opening up. It's all non-threatening. It's not, I thought your report card was bad.
Yeah.
We are not talking about report cards right now. But if they say, yeah, everything's fine, and they're failing everything, you know that that's not accurate. And is that an awareness thing? Is it, they don't have the words to put to what their struggles are, that kind of thing. There's a lot of research on kids who are doing online schooling I mean, there are some excellent programs out there, but for some kids who already have anxiety or issues with self-confidence, it can be really distracting because they want to look at themselves on the screen. And there's this hyper awareness that other people can see me on this screen.
Yeah.
And they might pay more attention to that than what the teacher's saying. They might be missing out on a lot of gestures. When we see the full body language and gestures of instructors, it stimulates additional parts of the brain and more memory centers, and it's that sensory motor learning connection. And there's just amazing research about the importance of the gestures and the body language we use. They might miss those because of sensory issues or because of a screen. But
we do have a question there. Are you seeing that as well? She says, how can parents help their students with ADD during this virtual learning time? They're in front of a screen all day. Too much screen time seems to change my girls.
Yes, that is a great question, Michelle. Most of the schools, if you're doing it through a school, most of the ones that I've seen do have breaks. I've even seen hour-long breaks in between times. And one of those things to think about that just fits right in with what I was going to talk about later anyway is it is so important to have movement breaks, and if possible, outside. It does really, kids need, and even the older kids need, an hour of physical activity every day, and outdoors is even better. There's a whole lot of sensory motor reason for that, and kind of mindfulness and body-brain connection, but get them moving. There are some kids who are doing better online than they do in person, but also make sure what is the environment like? And even ask your kids, what about where we have you set up for school, whether it is online learning or homework, is working for you and what isn't? It is one of the things about ADHD. ADHD is not an inability to focus. There are different types of focus. Some of it is selected attention. I don't accurately choose which thing to attend to and which thing to ignore. And so if we have a ton of visual fray or auditory fray, somebody else is in the other room with the TV on, or man, we have tchotchkes everywhere and they're super cute and cool and they came from our vacation. That's all fine and good, but we don't want those in the homework area. It's good to have maybe one item that is special or meaningful. Hi, Donnie, good to see
Donnie
you.
says, thumbs up. Yes, he's with you.
So good to see you. Have something personalized or an inspirational quote that they help pick out, or a superhero character that's super flexible thinking that we've talked about before, but get rid of visual fray. Have a place for everything, color coded, one binder divided up into multiple subjects instead of 6 to 8 different folders where things get lost. I did a whole organization show to help keep kids organized, but look at what their specific issues are. Is it task initiation? Is it divided attention? Is it what kinds of attention is it? Where are the struggles? Log these things. It's very hard. We think we're just going to pick up on it. Just my child's having trouble focusing, or my child's not remembering information the way he used to. If that's the case, by the way, and the pandemic has been really difficult. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you so much. Has been really difficult on a lot of, all of us, but neurodiverse kids who already might be in a fight or flight response more often, adrenaline and a lot of different chemicals are getting released that results in short-term memory loss.
Wow, I would have never known to tie those two things together.
Yeah. So think about the amygdala is the guard dog of the brain. It just hijacks the brain like things are different. I'm not safe. There's all this scary information in the news. We need to limit that with all of us, but especially these kids, but really for every person on the planet.
I was just thinking about that the other day. Like, we are so overstimulated, even people who don't have ADHD. Like, I'm finding myself overwhelmed with the amount of information coming in, like, all the time from my kids, from my family, from the news, from everything. It's overwhelming.
It is. And that's one of the tips I have is just what can you simplify? Because things just feel more complicated right now. In a way, some people are like, okay, we're in our groove now, and the pandemic is just, it's life right now. But we don't want to stagnate in that and just think we've got it figured out and that's good. What could be better? What was appropriate last March when the world changed may not be the same now. one of the things we've talked about what to ask kids, but one of the things to ask yourself is, have I been, and if you have, it's human nature, have I been in sort of what they're calling the COVID fog, and I am drowning out certain things because I'm already overwhelmed with all this news and all the school changes, and how do I work from home and be the teacher for my kids, and man, we don't have, this platform's not syncing up with our computer. And so then you have to kind of tune out extraneous noise, so to speak, and there could be subtle changes in kids' behavior that you're missing.
Yeah.
And it would be very easy to do, and it is not because you're not an attentive, wonderful, caring, loving parent, but have their eating patterns changed, and we're talking about for 2 weeks or longer in general, okay? Have their sleep patterns changed? Are they more withdrawn? It's so much more obvious to notice the ones who are lashing out and, and maybe overtly like attention-seeking behavior or being argumentative, things like that. But withdrawal is a huge sign too.
Yeah.
So really step back and ask yourself, are my child's needs the same now as they were 10 months ago when our world changed? But what can you simplify? Maybe there are certain demands that what's a must and what's because the Joneses are doing, keeping up with the Joneses, and does this really matter to our family's values? What can we let go?
Yeah.
I took piano for 3 years. I'm not into it. You're going to take piano. How necessary is that?
Right.
And it's really important for them to have a say in that. So also ask yourself, am I taking care of myself? Number one, you deserve it. And the amount of weight that has been put on parents' shoulders in this past year, it is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So self-care is always important. And then you had to add on even more hats and then you didn't already have enough, right? Self-care is not selfish. Who are you aside from the roles you fill? What causes, what hobbies have you let go? Carve those in. We talk about being a schedule builder. Put them in your calendar and honor them.
Yeah.
As you do the time you're teaching your kids. When you deserve it, number one. And number two, when you do that, you are going to be a safe harbor for your children on an even greater level. That is, you are the safe, calming space for your kids. You have a right to your feelings. You need a way to release them. Because of social distancing, are you missing out on time with friends?
Yeah.
And have you let go of working out? Well, my gym, all the rules there, and it's really a pain. How else can you work out right now?
Right.
That kind of thing. What can you say no to? What can you let your kids say no to? So simplification is very important when we have neurochemicals really overwhelming kids with ADHD and other neurodiverse challenges.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. But when you talk to teachers, don't just say, well, why do you think they're struggling in school? Ask, are they engaged in learning? That's a totally different question.
Yeah.
You can have a kid making straight A's who's not engaged. And that is a sign of issues to come, probably. Because we have to connect what kids are learning to what they care about. Why am I learning this? Why does it matter? When kids ask why, we want to give specific answers. Not because I said so or because your grade is dependent on it. That is not internal motivation, intrinsic motivation. That's extrinsic. Anything I'm doing to gain a reward or to avoid a punishment does not stir my soul.
Right.
So how can you tie math to baseball stats? If they're working on that. You're reading a story, tie it to a hobby or a vacation you went on. Make it relevant to them. Pull in their background knowledge. Engagement matters. Ask the teachers, how is their individual performance versus their group participation? That gives you a lot of information about self-esteem, confidence, and maybe being overstimulated sensory-wise. Also ask, how are they engaging with the kids socially? That's two different things.
Yeah.
If both of those involve other people, and so both of them could have a social component. But if it's participation in class is struggling, but socially everything's fine, you start differentiating and thinking they're not confident in what they're learning right now. Ask these questions. And are there any resources I'm not aware of that we're not using? know that even before the pandemic, so many schools now use Google Classroom or various apps or websites where they will post the teacher's notes. They will post when things are due, information about exams. Are all of those things being taken advantage of? How are the accommodations working if they have an IEP or 504?
Yeah.
And know that sometimes, and teachers too have had, this has been a really hard year for anyone who works in the schools, and you are the expert on your child. They are trying to be an expert for all of these kids in a completely different environment. And even in the best of circumstances, there have been countless stories. I think this is the exception, not the rule, but it does happen a lot where accommodations are not being implemented. And are they the right ones?
Yeah. That's a tough one because sometimes too, they'll say, well, sure, you qualify for this accommodation, but we just don't have the funds at this school to help you with that. You know, we used to run into that a lot because it was very hard for any teacher to contain Roger in a way that didn't disrupt the rest of the class. It was almost like he needed individual attention a lot of the time. And they simply didn't have an extra person they could send to the room, you know? So it was like, what are we all supposed to do, you know?
Yes. Yeah. It's hard all the way around, and school budgets and things, very important services are getting cut. But are there supports you can get for your kids outside of the school as well? And there's been a lot of research about how the older the kids are, the greater the gaps in the learning are becoming from this pandemic, but it's happening at all age levels.
Yeah.
Some people are like, is the academic slide real? Well, every bit of research I read says it is, and the kids that come to see us says it is. But 3-month program of focusing on the things the kids need is being found to catch up for what they've missed over the course of this kind of weird time.
Okay.
So as you're talking to your kids, you know, and if they're, let them know, and make sure, we talked about how to discuss learning differences with kids. Make sure they, you know, you have this struggle, and if you could have beat it by yourself, I know you would have. We are going to figure this out together, and I will support you every step of the way, and I'm going to get you the help you need, and then follow through on that.
Yeah.
It's don't say you're going to do something and not do it, because then you're breaking trust that you're building by having this open communication. And, you know, it's real, have family meetings, and you're talking about adjusting. What can we adjust about the environment? Man, it's pretty chaotic around here, and maybe I don't need to bake cookies every Saturday, or, I mean, unless that's just part of your value system, whatever it is for you. And talk to your spouse, significant other. If you have parents in the picture, or, you know, meaning grandparents who are helping you, have open communication about how you can work together as a team. Which parts of these extra tasks that you've taken on are energy begetting for you? Which ones drain the life out of your partner and you? And then put that jigsaw puzzle together where you're both filling the roles that are most closely aligned with your strengths and aren't draining you, because a strength is not just what you're good at, it is what is energy begetting.
Yes. I love that you said to ask yourself those questions of like, does this matter? Because we talked about perfectionism on our episode. And as we've told everybody, I'm a perfectionist. So sometimes I want to force things to happen or make things be a certain way. And I really have to go back and ask myself, does this matter? I love that. Is this a part of like my family's core values, or can we adjust, you know?
Yes. And even if in a lot of places, so many extracurriculars have been canceled. But aside from this year, I can't get over families who come in and the kids' lives look like CEO schedules.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, there's an extracurricular. Which ones can they let go? They do, just because it exists, they don't need to be involved in it. And you're not a bad parent. You know, it's very important to have downtime. It is very important to have downtime. And we talk about mindfulness. There's a time to be mindless and let your mind wander. And when kids, especially with ADHD, are told that, wow. There have been studies about boredom and that how much creativity happens. I shared the whole thing about Corey was laughing. I shared that a few months ago. But there have been a lot of studies about boredom. And sometimes when you quit trying so hard to make things this way, that's when the best answer comes to light. I do that all the time. I'm working on something, I'm going to let it go. And I go exercise, and a light bulb comes on. And I was like, why didn't I think of that sooner?
Yeah.
But it's because I just relaxed my mind and did something else, and then it came to me.
Yeah.
So how much do things matter to your kids? And they need to be pretty high on that 1 to 10 scale to make it into the equation without the pressure of I'm doing schoolwork. Ask teachers, how much time is homework supposed to take? Because the general rule of thumb by the educational institution is 10 minutes per grade level, but their expectations or the school's expectations may be higher. You can also gauge how much time is my child taking. Maybe they get it correct, but it's taking them 2 or 3 times longer. That means they're churning. Is there an amount of time that we can max out? Like, this is the cap on how much homework time my child's going to do. And regardless of how much is left undone, he's not going to be discounted for that.
Right.
And you grade him on the amount that got done.
Yeah.
That's not something I have maybe ever seen as an accommodation, but what a fantastic one. And that way I'm not overwhelmed with these 50 math problems. I did 20, 30 of them, but it was quality, and I didn't burn out and start hating school because it took too much time.
Yes, I love that. That debate of homework, should we do so much homework? Should we not do so much homework? I come from a family of teachers, and I know everybody falls kind of on a different spectrum. And my sister had a really good advice. She's a first grade teacher. She said, well, some kids need more practice and some kids don't. And if they understand the concept, it's one thing, but maybe they need more practice when they get home. So she was like, I'm not on like either side of this debate. I think it's both,
Yeah. And also there's so many ways to incorporate, when I talked about getting kids engaged, make it relevant and fun. You can work on so many skills. Go out and play catch while you review answers for a test, those spelling words, those math equations. And when you're cooking, work on fractions and so forth. Incorporate it. You have a child who wants XYZ, and you're like, okay, well, you can use your allowance to get that. How many weeks is it going to take you to save up enough money to buy that? They want to know that.
Yeah.
And they're working on that math skill. So how many ways can you fit it in where they're not sitting down at a desk with pen and paper in front of a screen? There are many ways to learn, that are kind of out of the box, but that makes it relevant. Guess what? Now I understand why math matters, because now I use my allowance to figure out, when to get there. Have them act out stories. They're having trouble remembering stories. Visualize it. Draw a picture of it. Now tell me about it.
Yeah.
Match where your kids are. Yeah.
I love that. That kind of ties in with what you were saying about keeping them engaged.
Yeah, it does. And just the bottom line is, after you have all these conversations, we talked how to set SMART goals of just 2 or 3 weeks ago. Sit down and set SMART goals. And some of them may be family SMART goals about, you realize I've not been engaging in self-care. My kids have a lot of extra energy. They're sitting behind a screen, and if they're getting a little rambunctious, as a family, this is going to be our physical activity goal. And use the SMART steps we talked about: specific, measurable, achievable, time-bound, and relevant and time-bound. I did those backwards. I did SMATTER, but anyway.
We can do a whole show on SMATTER, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, the SMATTER technique. But follow up with action. Have these conversations. Take notes. Log your observations. If you're not getting any information out of them, say, you know what? I kind of noticed that you have this kind of self-talk when you're working through homework. Does that ring a bell with you? And you be the observer. You be the detective. And then get them to open up about it and talk about struggles you've had. That will also make them more likely to open up.
Yes, that is such great advice. You tell us always to remind them that we have felt this way too. And I love that. I've been using that a lot here at home.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly how you're feeling, because everybody's different. Every situation is different. But I can really relate to this and they're like, really? And then they're not shamed by those struggles they're having. Are they missing out on social contact? And what can you do? Virtual play dates. I mean, some of this takes some extra planning because it's not the same old anymore. But have the conversations with yourself, your kids, your significant other, the teachers, and then set specific goals. And remember, part of that specificity is the plan for how you're going to get there. It's not just that the goal is specific. How are you going to get there? How measurable? What are the metrics I'm using to know when we've arrived at this?
Yeah. And I love that you have us talking to them about it too, because they might have an idea actually that doesn't occur to us. It's so easy to feel like it all falls on us. But sometimes if you just say to them like, okay, here's the goal that we're setting and this is what we're going to try to do. Do you have ideas of how we can make that happen? And they come up with this genius stuff.
Yes. That's it's so easy to accidentally shortchange kids on what they're capable of. When you involve them in the process, they feel an appropriate amount of control over their life. They learn to collaborate. These are tools they need in school, in relationships, in every part of life, jobs, right? And you will get buy-in, because what gets motivation, we talked about it before, but autonomy, mastery, connection, purpose, and interesting. How can we make it interesting to them? They're already more interested because you're asking for my feedback. And if it's something I came up with, clearly I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
But they want to grow in independence. They want to grow competence. They're going to feel connected to you, doing it together. Purpose. Why are we doing this? Why does this matter to me? That gets buy-in and makes a difference.
I love that. Oh my gosh, Heather, this was like so much great advice today. I feel like I'm trying to make sure we've touched on everything. Was there anything that we left out that you wanted to hit here at the end?
I don't think so. I mean, this is a conversation we could keep talking about, but I mean, just every question it's going to be tailored to your child, but just be thinking about open-ended questions unless they have profound language issues or something like that. And then we've talked about tools for how to kind of be more specific and pull it out of them, but try to avoid yes/no answers.
I love that. Ask all the why. I love the 5 whys. So I've been doing the why.
She's talking about the 5 whys. It's a metacognitive technique to get kids thinking about their thinking. That's what metacognition is. They come home from school mad. Why? I don't know. We don't accept no as an answer. You can say, I think it's because, and then well, I think it's because Bobby won't talk to me. Well, why do you think Bobby won't talk to you? It takes about 5 layers deep of why to get to the real deal so many times.
And so often I feel like even we as adults, we don't know exactly why we're mad. So like, this is so good for all of us to go through all these steps, you know?
Yeah, it is. And one other thing I'll say, some kids are not opening up to parents, not because they can't articulate it, but because they see the stress you're under, because this has been such a hard year. And so that self-care and working it out so that you can be that safe harbor, that's something I would have done as a kid. Like, I've got this thing going on and I stay quiet about it and I'm going to figure it out because I don't want to stress them out.
Yep.
And so that's a lot of love and such great empathy and compassion going on, but make sure they know that you're strong and you're there for them. You are, but they may misperceive. They have extra things on their plate. They might overhear you and your spouse talking and then think, I can't add something else to their plate.
Yeah, that's real. I feel like I have different things that we talk about each week going on with each one of my kids. So, we all have our struggles, but we are here together, doing this together, one foot in front of the other. And for those of you in Heather's area, make sure that you get in touch with her brain balance centers, because she is just a wealth of knowledge. And do you want to tell us about the Woodlands one more time, since it's your new location?
Yes, the Woodlands, we are starting to see families on Wednesday.
Yay!
And you can Google us. We're out there. We've got our microsite up and running. And you can also follow me on The Hidden Churn. I share daily doses of things that I've totally gotten wrong and right as a professional and a mom. So
yes, I love that. And each week you also have another show. Will you be doing that this week?
Yes, Thursdays at 3:30. Dr. Brian Aspie and I do a show. So
amazing.
So
that's that on Thursday. Make sure you check that out. So lots of interesting things going on at the Woodlands and at all the centers. Heather, as always, you've been a pleasure to talk to and just a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. I love this, and I appreciate everyone who shared their time with us.
Yes, we'll see you guys same time, same place next week, next Monday, talking about some other thing that's going to help us get through our day.
Yes, have a great week, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.